Do you all read about this or hear this? That you used to go up on Mulholland Drive and park
every night
and visualize seeing yourself as...
Yeah, I would visualize,
This is when you were broke and poor.
You know, right, having directors interested in me and people that I respected saying, you know, I like your work or whatever that is, and I would visualize things coming to me that I wanted or whatever. Drive home and think, well, I do have these things. They're out there. I just don't have a hold of them yet, but they're out there. I wrote myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, and I gave myself 5 years, or 3 years maybe, and I dated it Thanksgiving 1995. Just before Thanksgiving 1995, I found out that I was going to make $10 million and dollars.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to our all-new, all-different Outerhaven panels. I'm joined by my brand new co-host, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi. Yes, as you may know, things are different. If you have not heard, Jules no longer will be with the podcast of Outerhaven panels. He's grander things, but if you still want to follow his work, please do on social media, and wish him the best of luck. So let's get down to nitty-gritty, Sarah. Tell the viewers about yourself.
Oh boy, so fun. So I am the film and television editor on the Outerhaven. I am a junkie of all things entertainment, so that's comics, obviously, but also podcasts, TV shows, film, web series, anything that you could possibly enjoy. You name it, I've probably at least heard of it. And just really excited to be here.
That's great. But there's one thing you didn't hear of, or I guess we everyone heard of, start off, is that even though it's in a couple of weeks ago, The Walking Dead Season 9 has had a straight-up crap point in viewership. It is nearly hitting that last leg. I think the show might be dead.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe it'll get resurrected.
Yeah. And there are many reasons why the viewership is low, outside of characters being killed off. It's also how they were killed off. Like, for example, as you guys may have known, if this podcast is November 4th, 2018, this is the week that Rick will be killed off the show, which I think is a terrible decision for the show to tell us. That's just bad marketing. Why are you going to tell us he's going to be killed and we all make us watch it? Whatever. And two is Carl was the last character to get killed off, and he was killed off ruins the comic, as well as he was killed off because he was turning 18, and the production company of AMC did not want to pay him adult star prices. Even though he was willing to live in Georgia, they just wanted to pay him the child star prices. So they fired him out of finance convenience, which is a terrible reason since he's an integral character of the show.
Yep. And I mean, speaking from the pop cultural side of things, this show's been hemorrhaging viewers with every character that they've killed off. There's plenty of jokes and stuff about, Coral and all the memes that come out of it, but I saw a big drop in people who are interested in the show when Glenn died, because a lot of people were really upset about how that went down. It was just a matter of time, with Carl's really awful and unfortunate death, I think people are just sort of starting to realize that The Walking Dead doesn't so much care about a good story as they care about sort of the shock and awe of the whole thing.
Right, which is pretty funny. In the comics, there's much more character development for this reason. And by killing, Glenn does die in the comics, so he dies on the show. But the idea that, Carl dying, and he's such an intro character, you lost a huge perspective to the story. It's the stories where he becomes a lot more psychotic. There's a story where he leaves the group and does his own thing. And it's like, these are important, but just kill him because, we need the money. We can't afford a kid. And so it's pretty...
You couldn't afford another adult.
You couldn't afford another adult.
It's just ridiculous. And it does suck because the whole point of Carl was that you have this kid who's growing up in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. And how does that affect a person? How does that affect how he sees the world, how he interacts with other people? What does that affect his normal adult development? And then they're like, nah, fuck it, just kill him.
Yeah, and the worst part about it is that, as you mentioned, adult development, obviously he grows to be a kid to have a need of romance. There's a scene, I believe, in the comics, when Carl was with Negan and seeing the show, he's seen his wife den, of his girlfriends, of the women he had sex. And Carl was somewhat enthused but confused about it because he never had that talk of sex with his dad. Because you can't talk about sex when zombies can eat your freaking head off.
It seems less important, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting how he was just like bewildered by it. He's like, "What is going on? What are these women like half naked for? Pick what you like, Carl. What do you mean pick what you want?"
Yeah.
Like it's interesting in that aspect.
I mean, it's also interesting because, I don't know if it's the same in the comics, but Carl loses his mother when she's pregnant and is giving birth.
Yeah,
Like,
the mother does die. Yeah, that happens.
yeah. So that's gonna fuck up your feelings about sexuality and reproductive, processes and shit like that. It's like, can you, if knowing your mom died basically because she got pregnant, put another person through that?
Yeah. And the other interesting aspect is that Carl learns some romance later. As you see that other awkward kid, the skinny with the hair, she's kind of crazy. She becomes Carl's girlfriend, and Carl gets turned on about some near death. He gets turned on because Carl loses his eye, little grotesque guys, listeners beware. She puts her tongue in his eye socket and gives him a stiffy.
Ugh, ick.
Yeah, but it's sexual, and so it's like it's in that aspect it's kind of interesting because Carl's learning romance, but you just kill it off, that whole thing dies off, and it's one of those like, what are you doing? Walking Dead production studio, AMC. So it's like, well, like I said, I think the cash cow is dying, and time to just mooch. I don't think I have any idea what they're doing because again, this week's episode, as of November 4th, 2018, is the episode Rick's gonna die, and I disagree with them killing Rick because he's leaving, but telling the viewers he's gonna die that episode just so you could boost up your viewership is a terrible gimmick. And Sarah, you come from TV, you understand TV more. Does that really work? Telling everybody that this character's gonna die, everyone's gonna watch it in general, like this character's leaving the show, watch this final episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. That kind of tactic never really works in the way that most studio execs do. I mean, and there was a reason why, I believe it was the start of season 7 when Glenn dies. They were like, someone's gonna die, but who's it gonna be? That tends to work pretty well, but when you outright say so-and-so character, especially the main character, is going to die, unless you're gonna pull a reversal on us, it's not particularly effective. When in doubt, follow Game of Thrones rules with character death. Don't foreshadow it. Don't make a big deal out of it ahead of time. Just let the narrative run through its process, and also don't kill characters for the sake of shock and awe. If it doesn't play an important part in the story, if it's not going to add anything meaningful to your narrative, don't do it.
That's good. No, it's actually a good way to look at it because Game of Thrones is super successmal, and there's people just get their heads cut off left and right.
Yep, they're going down at weddings, they're going down at funerals, in churches, on the streets. Everyone died in Game of Thrones, and nobody's like, I can never watch this show again.
Yeah, it was like, oh man, I love this stuff. Do it again. It was like the worst part of Game of Thrones, though. I feel like not to be. I feel like I wonder if George R. Martin knows that I never finished. I don't think he finished the books yet, but he's gonna keep killing everybody. What's the books gonna have?
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, if we're gonna go on a baby tangent here, George R. R. Martin is playing it really smart because he understands that once the show finishes and all the characters in the show have died, people are going to want to read the last book to figure out, if he stuck to it because he's the one who told them how it was quote unquote supposed to end. He pulled a fast one on HBO and totally changed the ending for the books, which I think is brilliant.
That would be awesome. And speaking of things that could be awesome, James Gunn, formerly let go by Marvel, is at DC, and I believe he's currently just right now writing the Suicide Squad movie, the sequel.
That is correct. James Gunn has officially jumped ship. He signed a contract with DC and Warner Brothers, and he is going to, right now, be writing Suicide Squad 2, but the rumor is he is well in the running to direct it as well.
Yeah. Now, the thing is to me is I feel like, will this revive DC movie franchise? On my opinion, it's a no. Simply because I think public sentiment against DC movies is like, bleh, DC. But I think that this is a good direction for them. Maybe it could win some people back because the only DC movie I'm waiting on is Wonder Woman 2. And I'm semi-excited for Aquaman just to see can Jason Momoa make Aquaman cool? Can he do it?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Yeah. I think it's not only up to Jason Momoa, unfortunately. Like, what are they doing with Mara's hair? For the love of God, guys. Just dye it red. Just dye it red. No wigs. Wigs are bad.
Oh god, could you imagine? It's one of those situations like what was it? Like some actors can't, because who I am, you can't like shave my mustache or something.
Oh
Not,
yeah.
I'm not referring to Henry Cavill's Superman thing. I'm talking like other actors who are not willing to take off something other than like, nope, not doing it. And it's like, oh man, I gotta film around this. She's not willing to dye her hair red. And we're like, nope, all right, I guess we have to go work around this.
Eesh. Yeah, I don't think she's got enough star power. That's something I would expect from like Brad Pitt, but getting back to the issue at hand, I actually think this is a really smart move on DC's part. Not only because the firing of James Gunn was such a public and controversial move, not just with comics fans or Marvel fans, but really with a lot of people questioning, was it right for Marvel to make this decision based on tweets that he had already apologized for, were really old, it felt a
In the
little bit
past, yeah.
in the past. There had been several years gone, and he had acknowledged that they were insensitive. He had apologized for them, and then, when there are so many things that other writers and directors do and say that does not get them in trouble,
I
it's really smart on their part to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say that in defense of Marvel, they did it simply because they just don't want the publicity. I think they're just afraid of the fact that this guy was associated with something. They just want to avoid that. They just want to release the movies. That's it. They don't want none of that drama. Even if it's like could be easily squashed. Screw it.
Yeah, no, they're very careful about that sort of thing. And it's interesting because Warner Brothers is really like, if you look at Fantastic Beasts 2, there's this whole backlash about how, Voldemort is being played, not Voldemort, excuse me, gosh, you think as a Potter fan I would be better about that. Grindelwald is being played by Johnny Depp, who allegedly assaulted his wife at the time. And there's a whole storyline with Nagini, the evil snake. Turns out she's an Asian woman who's been cursed, and then eventually, if you know anything about Potter, she'll join the Dark Lord Voldemort and essentially then just be beheaded. There's a lot of things, but Warner Brothers is just like, nope, ignore it. It's fine. No, doesn't matter. Ignore it. Keep going on. So I think for them to hire on James Gunn for these projects makes a lot of sense.
Oh yeah.
So because they don't care. And I think it's a smart move for them. Will it save the DCEU? I think it's going to be sort of the next step out of shitty movie hell, which is where I think the DCEU lives now. Wonder Woman was a great first step. They got onto the ladder there. This could be the next step, and then, little by little, I think they can build their reputation, especially considering that Suicide Squad was really trying to dig off the same vibes as Guardians of the Galaxy to begin with.
Oh yeah. This oddball team be together. You got Will Smith. I mean, Will Smith was everything. Yeah, it was great, and it was. Yeah, I can see that. My only weakness I can see for Suicide Squad in general is, will it add the random factor of Suicide Squad the comics where characters just die? Will they add that factor? Because that was one factor that didn't do as much in the first movie. It was the villains being heroes, whatever. Amanda Waller was like the best anti-hero in that entire thing. She was like the most badass. Like she always was. She's always badass.
Yeah. I think, and this is a little crude, but I think they sort of blew their load too early by killing Diablo off.
Yeah.
That movie was not good enough to have that epic a climax. It's just like there's no build up. I'm into it, but now it's just like it has no resonance or meaning.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what he can do with it.
Yeah, the only thing though is not to get back on it, is remember when James Gunn was let go from Marvel and several people from the Guardians, people like Batista, said we're going to quit the show, whatever, I'm going to quit Marvel. None of that happened. So I guess the Marvel paycheck always comes through.
Well, the thing is, and here's the other thing I think people don't think about, is sometimes these actors get tied into movie length contracts. So they're like, you will stay with us for X amount of movies, and they can't just get out of that. For someone like Dave Bautista, who is amazing and he's great, he might want to leave Marvel. He might just not be able to afford breaking that contract yet.
Yeah, that's the best way to look at it. But yeah, that's actually the best way to look at it, because I know that Chris Evans was locked in for like at least 4 Avengers movies. Yeah, and he's leaving at the end of those. And each Avenger movie came out once every 2 years, so that's like almost a decade.
That's a lot. It's a lot to ask of an actor, And now that he is leaving, I think Chris Evans also was. He wasn't a big fan of the spotlight that it came with him. It's a lot of responsibility to be Captain America. But you're right. Once those movies were up, he's like, I'm not re-upping. I'm done. I want
Yeah,
to go and move on with my career. And, being Captain America is going to afford him acting opportunities he would not have gotten otherwise.
pretty much. Yeah, and being ripped always helped too. It's like from skinny Johnny Torch. Yeah, I'm ripped.
And also, I don't know if you know this, but like he does almost all of his own stunts in the movie
That's
yeah.
that's badass.
Yeah, because it's actually funny. It's because he moves so uniquely that like they couldn't get stunt actors to move the way he does convincingly. And so they're just sort of like, well, we're just gonna train you that like the really dangerous motorcycle stuff I don't think is him. But the fights, the running, the jumping, the sort of parkoury stuff, like that's almost all Chris Evans.
Wow. And
So
what's
he's tired.
Yeah, I can see that. But honestly, that's really cool that he was able to do it all. And similar to one of my favorite kung fu actors at the time, Jackie Chan, Duel's Expense, he didn't destroy his body.
Yeah, no, before he gets hurt, I think he's ready to move on. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Scarlett Johansson moves on sooner rather than later because she also does a lot of her own combat stuff in the
Nice.
films. Yeah, because well, she's just into it. Like it's not that they couldn't find someone who looks like ScarJo. She just wanted to do it. She's like, I'm interested in learning how to do this shit. Let's get it on. And I'm like, good for you, ScarJo.
You do you. Yeah, break that dude's arm. I mean, on camera.
On camera.
Oh man! And speaking of things that's will soon be off camera, as you may have heard, Iron Fist and Luke Cage were both canceled from Netflix series, rumored to be moved to the the Disney streaming stream, but they were canceled within reason. And Sarah, are you aware of the reasons they were got off?
Well, one of the biggest reasons, according to Netflix, was that it lost a massive amount of its viewership in its second season. So Luke Cage did incredibly well in its first season, Iron Fist less so. But by season 2, Netflix has noticed those numbers had dropped about 2/3, which is very troubling for a show that they're putting so much time and money into.
Mm-hmm. Which means that they could have been just honestly let go by Netflix because that's just disappointing from any point of view. Especially Netflix now is funding and producing a lot of their own shows, such as cartoons and live action shows, etc. And it's like this is a loss for us, even though it's a Marvel property, which that's undeniably because if that was the case, Marvel Disney would have just took out Daredevil and Jessica Jones like nope, just keep them.
I mean, it's not to say that the long-term strategy isn't to essentially revamp these series when the Disney streaming service starts up on its own. But I do think that Netflix pouring, the budgets for these shows are not cheap. Like they
No.
are really high for, even HBO shows. Like they're up there. So Netflix has to cut its losses. It knows that these titles are no longer going to be available probably in the next 2 years. They're like, we're not going to put money into shows that people clearly don't want to see. More so probably Iron Fist than Luke Cage because Luke Cage did have a following. But, they're hedging their bets, I think, at this point too.
Yeah, I mean the thing is like the sort of the Iron Fist. It's like Iron Fist had within Twitter, Instagram, social media about 100 conversations, 100 times you could search it and stuff, right? And they found out by second season it was like barely 20K, barely because of like what's going on. Like even if you hate the show, if you talk about it, that means something. Like
Absolutely.
yeah, like that. What's that show on Netflix? The one with the crude kids and everything. Big Mouth. Like people dislike Big Mouth. I seen of it. It's a bit crude. It's not my cup of tea. But even if they hate it, they talk about why they hate it. They hate the show and say nothing. That's like a death sentence, even in that sense.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, Iron Fist had problems from the start. I think Netflix and or Marvel, I'm not 100% sure who gets the most vote on that casting table, but the fact that a lot of people really wanted, Iron Fist to be played by an Asian American or a half white, half Asian person to sort of pull it out from this like kind of racist pulp fiction origin. And they were just like, no, and so just that backlash already sort of knocked Iron Fist off of the platform. I was surprised it got renewed for a second season period. I thought it was going to be dead in the water automatically.
Same thing, as well as this cruddy storyline. At one point, I called the first season Corporate Fist. It was 90% in that corporate office. Yeah. And yes, the funny thing is, that's a very tricky line to dance around for Iron Fist. It's like, because if you put Iron Fist as an Asian American or a half white, half Asian, it kind of plays into Asian stereotypes, which again is spicy because like Asians don't be known as, oh, you guys do kung fu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's pretty spicy.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's very tough. In my opinion, they could have picked a white guy who maybe looked kind of Asian and who actually looked good fighting.
Oh, yeah.
Finn Jones, horrible looking. All his fight scenes look terrible.
Oh yeah, I mean, Finn Jones can't fight, he can't really act. Honestly, I'm disappointed because the actress who plays Colleen Wing is amazing.
Oh
I'm like,
yeah, Miss
why
I think
isn't this
something
her
Hendrick,
show?
right?
Yeah, why can't we have the Colleen Wing show featuring Iron Fist? Because
The sad part is that we technically Daughters of the Dragons or Heroes for Hire, but again, Marvel, that's a huge game because both of those properties are like B, C, D, like between that range, between B and D tier.
yeah,
That's a huge risk.
I know, but it just worked out that way. And the sad part, I think the sadder story here is Luke Cage was the first season was really excellent.
Oh, it was
I think
phenomenal.
I think what killed it, and hear me out here, I think what killed it is what kills a lot of other shows. It came out when a lot of other things were premiering, and those audiences just made a choice to watch something else over Luke Cage, thinking, "We'll just come back to it when we're done with the other show." And since it didn't get those high starting numbers the way it did when it first premiered, Netflix read that as this is not doing as well as we thought.
Right. I wonder now, since we're moving towards the holiday season and there's not a lot to watch the stuff. I mean, movie wise, I think we're getting Wreck-It Ralph, or are they moving that to Christmas? I don't know. I could be incorrect,
I
but
feel like that's still Thanksgiving.
that's Thanksgiving. So I guess it's like because of that break that's coming in, and there's not a lot of shows on Netflix that's like popping off right now. I mean, I can only recommend like The Dragon Prince and maybe Hilda, but those are old. But it's like
Oh, I beg to differ, but go for it.
what Dragon Prince is like. 3 months is kind of old, I guess.
I mean, I think they were smart to put out The Haunting of Hill House, which if you are a horror fan, you need to watch it. Like, finish listening to this podcast, don't get me wrong. Finish, rate and review and all that stuff. But then go watch the show because it came out early October. Nobody was expecting it. Nobody knew what they were going to do with it because it's based on a really good novel. It has nothing to do with a novel almost, but
Mhm.
it came out and it fucking blew everyone away and everyone lost their goddamn minds. And that's kind of what you have to do. And that's what they did with Luke Cage the first time around is they put it in a slot where nothing was really coming out and people fucking flocked to it. But then the second time around they put it in a slot that was super popular and it just didn't garner the same amount of views.
Yeah. Yeah, because the thing of the show second season was excellent. I mean, the only thing I could argue is like how long they dragged Mariah's arc a little too much, as well as a lot of people, at least my friends, like as someone of Caribbean descent, this was a good portrayal of our culture, even though X you can argue, but it was a good thing. But again, I'm actually thinking about it right now. What came out during the time? Yeah, it was like 3 other shows. Goddamn. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of stuff was coming out, and you can only watch so many things.
Yeah. And speaking of things that are coming out, to Titans, the Titans as a show will be now adding, the LGBTQ character, Jeff Johns hinted. I think I know who is going to be. I think it's going to be Bunker.
I don't know who that is.
Bunker is a Teen Titan member. Around the modern era, I want to say during Scott Lobel and not Churchill. Churchill's not. It was Scott Lobel during New 52 during DCU. Scott Lobel with the first half that runs terrible, and the second half was done by some independent writer. I forget the guy's name. The art was done by Kenneth Rocafort, redone Manchester Black. I actually forgot the writer. But it was not Will Wheaton. But the thing was, Bunker is a Latino homosexual character. He hangs out with Beast Boy. His powers he is telepathically or telekinetic, summon bricks and punch you with it. He dresses up like a very purple Iron Fist with like huge pink, light purple, magenta, and just summon bricks and punch thing. I think that's going to be the character they need for the show. Will it help the show get better or worse? I'm iffy on it. I mean, my thing about Titans is that I feel a lot of the wardrobe design of that show is horrendous across the board.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people got kind of mad about, sorry, just 1 second, Starfire being African or African American, and I don't mind that kind of thing, especially, because there's no freaking reason why she couldn't be black. She's orange in the comics, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, orange is whatever.
Yeah, but it's kind of messed up that they basically dressed her like the worst stereotypes of African American women. I was like, buddies.
But guys, this might be racist, guys.
I mean, that it's just like, why? Like, why? What was the decision process behind that? It's just like, well, we could just dress her up in the original outfit. We could make her wear regular clothes like the other Titans, or we could make her look like a hooker with a fur coat.
Right. And the thing about it to me is there was so many design decisions. Like, you could have, if they want to spend the money, they could have went through the body paint experience. The CGI didn't really help us either. Like, just not the hooker dress. Just stripper boots, no dice.
Yeah, it's just, and that fur coat, like, that's not good for fighting. I can go ahead and tell you that right now. I think actually the person who came out the least scathed was definitely Beast Boy. I'm like, this is a good design. This is functional. I can get behind this.
Yeah, he looks like the original Changeling, the red and white, red and silver, etc. I mean, he's got jeans, that's nice. Raven looks like a stereotypical, like, Goth girl, yeah. And I'm disappointed in Robin's because it looks way too dark. It's not as bright and colorful as we thought Robin is. Robin isn't that type of hero, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, well, in the trailer when he's like, fuck Batman, it's like, okay. Someone gave them license to swear. I guess it's time.
It's time. And the worst part is, this is Jason Todd? Nah, it's Dick.
Ugh, whatever.
Whatever.
So dumb. But, hey, at least we still have Birds of Prey to look forward to.
Oh, God, yes. I'm praying for, I don't know, part of you wants Batgirl to be in a wheelchair as horrible.
I don't actually think, and here's the kind of fucked up part, I'm not 100% sure Batgirl's in it. They haven't cast a Batgirl yet. Obviously, Harley Quinn will be played by Margot Robbie. I believe Huntress is going to be played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who's probably best known as Ramona from Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, or from 10 Cloverfield Lane. And then I'm going to have to look up her name, unfortunately, because I am really bad at names. Let me just triple check. Yes, so Journey Smollett Bell, who's going to be in the upcoming Lovecraft Country adaptation for HBO, is going to play Black Canary. Now, if you don't know who Journey is, she is an African-American actress. She is super, like, from what I've seen of her, like, she's very sort of composed and put together. Her acting career is still pretty on the new side, but she's really great. So I was actually really surprised that people were like, how dare you cast Black Canary as a black woman? And I'm like, nah, I'm into it. Do it.
The sad part is that doesn't bother me as much as long as she got those fishnets. Spicy stuff. But
yeah,
honestly...
I think they will. I think they'll give her fishnets.
Yeah, my thing about Black Canary, though, is, like, at worst, I've seen her tan. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't. I mean, so I'm not really that much afraid of the character change in that aspect, which is pretty funny because I was... When it comes to, like, when it came to Iron Fist being a non-white, it was like, yo, this is not saying, oh, it's racist. Like, if you make him Asian, it's bad. But if you make Iron Fist as a white guy, you have to make him less white, like make him a human being.
Yeah.
But that's, again, Finn Jones.
Yeah. Oh, apparently.
But I'm excited about that. Oh, wait. You know, they could have. What? They could have. You know, it would be super dope if somehow they got Catwoman in there. Somehow. It would be super dope if somehow did that. Or make her the villain. Who knows?
Well, I mean, the villain is Black Mask, and that's Ewan McGregor, so...
Oh, yeah. That's great.
Right, don't forget. I mean, yeah, we'll see. I mean, frankly, I really do think, and I'm very much for the movement of, like, if a character does not have to be white, or a person of color specifically, like, if it's not in their character motivation that they are this or that, then I don't see why we can't play with that a little more. Especially to give actors of color who already are sort of pigeonholed into specific kinds of roles. You know, like, I would kill to see Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel in a movie.
Oh, yes. I mean, she has been climbing up comic book characters. She's on teams now. She's on events. She will have an animated movie soon. Kamala Khan and the entire Marvel team that helped back and created that character, from G. Wilson, the editor, they all deserve it. Even the artists, all of them deserve that.
Oh yeah, so I'm super excited for that. But again, because Muslim women, or women of Arabic descent or Middle Eastern descent, are often just put in these roles of like, well, you're going to be the woman in the hijab who's sad.
Oh God, yes.
And it's just like, but Muslim women have bright, exuberant lives, just like every other human being on the planet.
It's super hilarious. It's like they put them in, they pitch, like, much like you mentioned earlier, minorities. It's like you get pigeonholed these roles. It's like, what are you doing? And then with, like, on the other spectrum, it's like, well, we just can't seem to find an actor to do this. I'm like, right here, right there, my dude.
There's like a
Yes.
whole list of people I could just fucking give you, and there they are. They're so talented. Just let them do this thing. It's the same thing where it was like there were a lot of really talented Asian kids who auditioned to play Aang in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and at the end of the day, they went with some atrocious white child who couldn't
Yes, I
act for
remember reading
shit.
that story that was shown, and it made me that story made me particularly upset because M. Night Shyamalan is of Indian/Asian descent, and it's like, dude, do you not know you're in a position right now? You could have, even if the movie was bad, it would have still people like, yo, they did it right. At least that part was right.
Could have elevated people, but no. I mean, hey, at the end of the day, there are probably decisions that go on behind the scenes that we'll never really know what happened. But I think it's always appreciated when we have cool things like that. So I'm excited for Janae to play Black Canary. I'm excited to see what they do with the roles. I do hope there is a Batgirl. We just don't have casting yet.
Yeah. Yep. See. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. Just Miss Batgirl. I mean, the worst case scenario though is as a joke, DC, please don't do this. You cast Jaden Smith as Nightwing. I would lose my shit if you do that.
Oh no! Don't, now that you said it, it's gonna happen.
Oh God,
You made it
guys,
happen.
your skin replaces itself 900 times every day. What the hell, Nightwing? Oh man, but that's
Oh no!
pretty cool stuff. And what else is some pretty cool stuff is going to happen is that Sarah's going to give you her monthly recommendations books look up.
Yes, so I'm excited. I'm going to rep a series actually that I have been a fan of for a long time and will be ending in 2019. So if you want to get on the bandwagon while shit is still coming out, now is the time. I'm talking, of course, about The Wicked and the Divine from Image Comics by Kieran Gillen and Jamie McClevey. I always say that name wrong. And if you've never heard of it before, it is a really cool series. So it takes place in a world where every 90 years there are 12 gods that come back and are reincarnated as humans. But then, essentially, once they are outed to the world as being these gods, they die in 2 years. So it's sort of a gift and a curse. And they become sort of these musical, especially in the modern age, they become sort of these musical icons. And so the story begins already with a lot of what they call the pantheon, i.e., the 12 being born, and this one girl named Laura being really into the different people, but then there's a murder, and slowly and surely things start to fall apart. It's a really well written series. It's got some really fantastic art, some cool ideas, and if you like mythology, let me just tell you, this is the one for you. We've got Japanese gods, we've got Celtic gods, we've got Lucifer running around, we've got Greek, Arabic, I'm trying to think, there's so many of them, Egyptian, all these different mythologies coming together to form these really fantastic characters and storylines. And there's a lot of double crossing, there's a lot of mistaken identity. Um, and if you are looking for something to really feed into that niche of like low-key fantasy in a modern setting, still very connected to sort of that epic ancient drama, then this is definitely the book for you. I also recommend it because they have special one-shots. And the one that recently came out, which was 1373, is about Lucifer being a nun, which is great, and I love it.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, yep. So if you're so inclined, you should be able to pick it up just about anywhere comics are sold. If you're like me and you prefer to get trades, those are available. They also have omnibus versions. They have The Wicked and the Divine books 1, 2, and 3. 3 will be out in December. So, get freaky with it and enjoy some old school and new school mythology.
Cool. And if you do love Karen Gillan's work in mythology, you could also look up his prior work when he was at Marvel, Journey to Mystery, where he wrote an entire series about Lady Sif solving magical and murderous bullshit happening in Asgard. Great stuff.
Ooh, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's Karen Gillan was at Marvel was a great time. I mean, that and Young Avengers will probably be one of the best young teen book, at least in my opinion, of like not of all time, but up there. It competes with Teen Titans of how modern and fresque it is on the take of growing up, being young, doing all that stuff, and adding Kieran Gillen's spicy writing, which has always been on point. Like, that's the thing too. I had this fear that Kieran was gonna be like Wicked and Divine came out the first 3 issues. I'm like, yo, this guy's he lost it. He left Marvel. Everything's gone. Oh wow, he knows how to write, and he killed Satan. Cool.
Yep. Oh, you gave it away! No.
Oh, don't worry, Satan's alive. Come on.
Well, actually, Satan is not alive, but good
Oh,
try.
Jesus Christ.
Well, he's not there either.
Okay.
But
Don't worry about it. You guys won't. It's
it's fine.
still cool.
There's a lot more intrigue, believe me.
Trust me.
like
Yeah, that's just like a tip of the iceberg.
Oh god, yeah, it's a big iceberg.
Yeah, and speaking of tip of the iceberg, if you want to learn how to make friends and not kill people, you could try out the book I'm recommending. It's a one-shot graphic novel by Kristen Guznick. It's called Making Friends. It's essentially about a young girl who is going to middle school, and all of her friends are no longer with her. They're all in different sections, different classes, big school, right? So she finds, through her family raiding through randomly her old aunt slash grandma's house, and they find some things like junk. And then she found this notebook and starts using it, and things happen. A little spoiler, she created a head of, I would guess a Sailor Moon villain, the evil prince, and convinced Sailor Moon head prince to love her always because she's alone. And then she goes on from there for making quotation mark friends. And it gets a little bit amazing and creepy from there because you realize if you can't make people love you. That's pretty much the theme. You can't do it. And it's cool in the aspect because she's going through all this. She's making new friends. Obviously, going through stuff. And the evil Sailor Moon boyfriend head, Prince Neptune, that's his name, is clearly, if you remake a villain in real life, they're clearly going to do evil. That's just that. I'll leave it as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to check out Kristen Gunn's work, she also did a series known as Hench Girl in the past, and is currently writing modern fantasy at Dark Horse. Modern fantasy doesn't have a trade yet, but Hench Girl does have a one trade, 7 issues. It's her early works. It's a little rough, but I totally recommend it to get an idea of her art style and what she writes.
Sounds like a blast.
It is a blast, dude. I mean, the sample I got the book, Kristen Gunn's book, at Comic-Con or sometime last month, and I had a chance to read it. I'm like, oh man, this is actually still pretty cool because I was worried because her prior works was, a little somewhat disjointed, a little not there, but it's definitely watching like Karen Gillan, watching their art get better across. Like watching you did Journey to Mystery, you did this, you're doing oh man, you still got it and you're getting better at it. That's always the one thing I love about comics, like in general TV or film thing. Watching a creator or an actor just get effing better.
Absolutely. I mean that's the best part of any art form really, is watching people grow from fledgling creators with a lot of potential to really owning their craft. And that's the best part about comics, is even though it's not a bibliography in the straightforward way like fiction or nonfiction authors, you still get to see the products of years of work and toil and sweat and tears.
Yeah. Before you swear they're the greatest by only reading one of their things. And then until you read the bad stuff, then you realize, wow, this guy, he wrote some really weird stuff.
Yep. I mean, unless it's Alan Moore, in which case it's all over the map, and you don't know where this bad starts and the good ends and what's happening. Oh god,
we can go on a tangent on Alan Moore, but the best thing about Alan Moore is that it's a surprise every time you read his work. That's the way it's described. Like, what is he doing? Like, it's a surprise.
You just take a deep breath before you open that trade, and you just go, okay, give it a shot, and then just go from there. Anyway, guys, thanks again for listening to War Infinite Panels. Sarah, thanks again for joining me on this podcast. Yay, so exciting.
Yeah, she'll hopefully be back next month and not trying to kill me to force me to read Neil Gaiman's books.
Well, either you're getting a package full of books or a package with a severed head in it, so,
Alright, I guess I gotta read those American Gods then. Alright, guys, be sure to follow us on social media, and be sure to follow the Outerhaven so you can be on top of our podcast and many other things we're doing.
See you later.
about this or hear this? That you used to go up on Mulholland Drive and park
every night.
and visualize seeing yourself as...
Yeah, I would visualize,
This is when you were broke and poor.
Right, having directors interested in me and people that I respected saying, I like your work, or whatever that is, and I would visualize things coming to me that I wanted or whatever. Drive home and think, well, I do have these things. They're out there. I just don't have a hold of them yet, but they're out there. I wrote myself a check for $10 million for acting services rendered, and I gave myself 5 years, or 3 years maybe, and I dated it Thanksgiving 1995. Just before Thanksgiving 1995, I found out that I was going to make $10 million and dollars.